Hello, my name is Shaughnessy, and this is my podcast called Samples of Science Cuisine, and I would like to introduce today's guest.
So go ahead and introduce yourself for me.
My name is Brailey Guz. I am an Exercise student, and I also minor in addiction studies.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about your major in the program in general for exercise physiology.
So basically our major is kind of just all these different science classes. You do a little bit of bio, you do a little bit of chem, but we really focus on like the exercise physiology part of it. So anatomy, and then strictly like ex-phys classes. You have a little bit of kinesiology too. Basically figuring out like what the body does in terms of like movements outside, but also like what's going on inside while you're doing those movements. So we really focus on like exercise, what is that doing like in terms of like your blood levels, like is your glucose rising, like your epinephrine, like things like that. It's a great program if you're thinking about going on to different schools like dental school, optometry school, medical school, anything like that. It's great because it's literally covering every basis that needs to be covered, especially to prepare you for those like entry tests that you have to take.
Yeah. Can you describe a little bit of like the terms that you use? So like what's kinesiology?
So kinesiology is the way like your body is moving. So when you're squatting, like what are your knee joints doing? Like are they like pivoting? Are they hinging? Like things like that. So you're like looking more at like how your body, what planes they're moving in. Is it frontal, sagittal, things like that. It's weird for people who haven't been in the class because you're thinking of it like, okay, you're just watching somebody do a movement, and it's so much more than that because you're just looking at all these different joints, like where are these joints? Why are they useful in that part of the body? But you're getting all of these things to then like go and like build on them. So when you're in the medical world, like you're going to be able to say like, okay, that ligament's torn, so therefore they can't do this anymore, or maybe they shouldn't do that when they're recovering. So things like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Can you go a little bit into the process of like if you were to use the knee for example, how you understand how everything moves?
I'm trying to think what would be like a good way to explain this. So in terms of like, think of your elbow, because that's a very simple one. Like it hinges.
Yeah.
You like it goes up and it goes down. It's just a hinge joint. But then like when you think about it also in terms of like your shoulder, it can rotate. So you have like an external and an internal. You're rotating your arm, but that's actually not your elbow, which a lot of people think like, oh, no, like that's completely different. So when you're thinking of like, if you break your like forearm, you're not really worried about your shoulder. You're more worried about that like elbow joint, like things that you aren't gonna be able to do now because you can't move that up and down.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a better way to explain it. I'm just trying to think of it in terms of like why it would be so important to us. That's the best I can think of like how that would really apply. I'm trying to think of other things. There's a lot of studies too. For instance, like the runners, I know they do that all the time with like the way their ankles move and the way you walk. Like, are you pronated? So like, are you walking like super on the inside of your feet? So what would be like a good way to get them better training to be like a more flat-footed runner? Or what would be the best shoe for them to wear? They even do it with like astronauts and things like that. Like they'll take them up to space and see how their joints move up there. And then when they come back, you're putting all that force again on them. Like, what are ways that we can change how much force is applied? Or that maybe then people won't get off like arthritis. Like, how can we better it in the future?
Okay, that makes so a lot to do with like the way you're explaining it. It seems like it's a lot to do with like joints and the way things move and function.
Yeah, it's a lot more. It's not necessarily just joints because you get into like in your ex-phys classes, you're getting into like your mental health, you're getting into the liver, the kidneys, tons of different things, the heart, you really hit cardiovascular. But it's more of just like when you're doing certain functions, how is your body inside changing?
Okay.
So when you're doing things outside, I kind of like how they introduce it because you first go through kinesiology, which is all about how your body's moving on the outside. What joints are you using? What actions are you performing? Are you rotating? Are you this? Are you that? And then you get into these specific X-Phys classes that's like, hey, when you're running for the first 8 to 10 seconds of an all-out sprint, what are you using? Like, what in your body are you using? And you're like completely depleting your ATP. So that's the basis of it. You're looking at first the outside, what you're using for that, and then you're diving like deeper into it. Like, okay, when you're doing that, when your body is doing all of these actions, what's being released, what's changing in your blood, that type of stuff.
Okay, interesting. So, because when people think of exercise physiology, typically they think of you're just studying exercise.
And honestly, I didn't want to go into this major because I'm not an like I wasn't an athlete. I wasn't somebody who really exercised. I could care less about the gym. And I was like, what am I doing going into this? And then I started it and I was like, okay, there's a lot more to this. It's not just like go like bench press or go run on a treadmill. Like you're looking at these things and you're looking at like how they're actually interacting with the body, which I think this major is probably the best in terms of like an overall health standpoint, because you're learning every body function, but you're also learning like, hey, if you do go and do exercises in increments of 10 minutes, you're going to be so much healthier and you're decreasing all of these other risks that come with it. So I think it's also like a really good thing because yes, it's medical and you're seeing like the Scientology side of it, but you're also seeing like huge benefits from what's actually being explained. Okay. Like you can use them in your everyday life to be like better health.
Okay, that makes sense. Going back a little bit to before college, when did you start first hearing about colleges and then what resources were you given?
So I came from a family. My dad has 2 master's degrees, and he had went through college and everything, but he actually didn't get his master's until my parents got divorced. So when they got divorced, he went back and got his master's. So that was the first I ever heard of like college going beyond like, at that point I was 4. So like my dad was always going to these classes and I was like, where is he going? And I found out then. My mom was also a nurse. So I had always known that there was something beyond like my formal schooling of just like the middle school, high school, but I had no idea what anything was. I don't really know when I first started thinking like school. I knew there was something beyond, but I didn't know like college. I didn't know any of that. My brother, we have a 12-year age gap, so he actually moved out to go to college when I was still really, really young. So when we came up here to WVU, I was like, oh my gosh, he's some cool kid. Like he's going to WVU. Like what is this? He gets to move out. So that was probably my first like introduction to like college. And then it was also nice because he actually went on and got his doctorate in economics. So he was the first person to also introduce me to like a doctorate program or like something more than, because I didn't know what a master's was. I was just like, oh, my dad's going on. And it was a 2-year degree. And I was like, what are you doing with this stuff? Like, and I never really understood. So he actually like took it a step further where he was like, I'm going to Michigan for my doctorate of economics. And he went there and it was really neat because he really pushed me like out of my comfort zone with just staying here in West Virginia. I'm born and raised here. So I love West Virginia. I don't see myself ever going anywhere else. But he was just like, you need to push the boundaries. Like, yeah, you can go to West Virginia, but like, don't just go there and be another student. Like, go there and actually do something with it. Because he knew that I wanted to be a doctor. So, and I didn't know what it took to be that at such a young age. So he was like, if you're going to go to college there, you have to stand out. Like, you can't just go there and just be another student. If you want to go to med school there, you need to make a name for yourself so you can go to med school there. Like, you need to establish yourself now so they don't forget who you are. Yeah. So that was probably the biggest. Schooling wise, it was my brother. He really got me like introduced to everything. And even now he's like, don't sell yourself short. Like, I want you to do the best. So he was definitely my college person.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
In high school, did you have a guidance counselor who gave you any resources?
Yes.
Or anything like that?
So growing up in West Virginia, it's all West Virginia, or Marshall, or anything here in West Virginia. They don't, when it comes to like out-of-state schools, we don't have much on that. But when it comes to in-state schools, they gave us tons of resources. They brought tons of people there too, to like be like, we're from West Virginia, we're on the admissions committee, you know, what can we do to get you enrolled? They actually, the person who came down and talked to us ended up getting me scheduled for a tour up here. And that's how I ended up applying, because they gave us like the free code to get the application here. But like I never thought of like going anywhere else. I always thought like WVU. My mom also works here in the hospital. So like that was my other thing too, is like I wanted to, she already kind of knew the campus. So I was like, at least I feel better equipped to go there. The only thing our high school didn't do, which I wish they did do, is like bring us on a legit tour and take us through like the different places that they have here. Because as a kid from Fairmont, you just knew of downtown. You didn't know that there was like a whole health science center. I had no idea of that. I thought it was just a hospital. That's all I thought it was when I was in high school. And then there's not just downtown. You have Evansdale, you have here, and then you have like even little off-site things like the rec center. I didn't know what those places were. I had no idea. I just thought there's downtown and there's Mountain Lair, and that was all it was. And at first I was like, I don't want to go to a party school. I was not like a party school person, and I was like really intimidated. And when I came on my tour, I was like, oh, there's so much more to this, and I felt so much more comfortable actually coming here.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you talked a little bit about how you didn't want to go into this major, but how did you decide to go into the major of exercise?
So I did club diving up here at the natatorium. It was still the natatorium then, over by the Coliseum. And I got to talk to their college divers when I would like be going to practice or stuff. Like I was just kind of like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what's your major? That type of stuff. And 4 of them were like exercise physiology. And I was like, what is this? Because of course you hear exercise and you're like, okay, it's just exercising. And then they kind of started telling me like, I'm doing this to go to vet school. I'm doing this to go to nursing school. I'm doing this to go to PA school. And I was like, okay, that seems like something that would be interesting to me. So I got online. When they were telling me these things, I would go home and I'd be like, okay, exercise physiology. So I researched it here at WVU and I saw, okay, this is a great program. But that was really it. It was just from what WVU gave me online on their like welcome thing. And then I told my mom and I told my brother. My brother was like, that's perfectly fine if you want to go that route, but it looks like a lot of kids go that route. And he was like, I kind of think you should go with another major. And I was like, his big thing was like differentiating me for medical school. Cause he was like, what is going to differentiate you from another kid? And I was like, no, that's what I want to do. I'm going to go that way. My mom was like, listen, it looks like a great program. If that's what you want to do it. And if you know me, I'm kind of the person that like, I'll differentiate myself on my own. It doesn't matter what, you could throw me into a pool with tons of kids. I'll find a way. And I was like, if I want to go to med school, I'll find a way. I'll find a way to make myself known in this program. Do not worry. And I mean, I wouldn't say I've made myself like known, but like I have took steps to really differentiate me from just other kids in the program. So, and that was my big thing. Like I wanted to go into a program. I like having a lot of people too that are in the same like boat as I am. So I felt like it was a big enough major, but yet it wasn't super overwhelming, if that makes sense. And the way WVU put it out was that it wasn't super overwhelming. If you would have told me about X-Phys, what I know now, when I was applying, I probably would have been like, oh my gosh, like crying, because it's not an easy major. But like now that I've been through it and I've been through all the experiences, I would like every kid that I see, I'm like, look into it. It's just worth looking into. If you get into it your first year and you're like, this is not for me, at least you tried it. Because if you want to go on, I think it's the best program you could do.
Oh, definitely. Have you ever considered changing your major since you've been in Exercise?
No. The only thing I ever considered was double majoring, because I really like the addiction science of it, and I feel like Exphys and addiction studies kind of go hand in hand. A lot of people would never think that, but there's part of me, I love addiction studies. It's just I love everything about it. And I feel like as a doctor or a provider, you need to know how these medicines can affect the lives of others. And I don't think there's enough on it. I'm a CA in the hospital now, and I see it all the time. And I'm like, I just don't feel like there's enough people going into this that know how powerful these drugs are that we're giving people. So I really just wanted to educate myself more on it. And then when I started, I was like, man, I really like this. I could totally double major in it. The reason I didn't is just because the end goal for me is not to be a therapist or a counselor. It was to go on to med school. So that's why I ended up staying with exercise physiology, primarily because I wanted to really hit hard on that and not on the addiction studies of it all.
That makes sense. Can you go a little bit into how they are related? Because I'm curious.
So you go to a doctor's office. You say you're in pain. It was really the early 2000s, when pain clinics became a huge thing. In the 2000s, they would just give you painkillers and be like, here you go, here's oxycodone, like take 30 or 60 home at a time. And so you learn about all the brain pathways and how like this is sending your brain into a spasm. So like your dopamine's going crazy and you love the effects of these painkillers and you're like, I want this. So then you're craving it and you then are developing a dependency on it. So as a provider, as somebody who has the authority to give out these types of drugs, why wouldn't we try to educate ourselves better to then not contribute to this opioid pandemic problem? Like, why would we not try to keep it to a minimum? So now I've learned of like, there's so many other things that we can give out. We can give out lower doses of things that maybe aren't, or if we notice that like somebody maybe is requesting too many, let's like refer them to a counselor or something like that. Just like signs to look for. Yeah. And also like start with the lower things. Don't just hit hard with the big things first. Yeah. So that was my big thing with like the correlation is how can we slow the opioids from getting distributed?
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So what does a typical day look like for you as an exercise physiologist?
So I'm in my last semester here. So it's a lot different now than it was last year. Last year would be a better representation. Okay, because this year I'm in internship, so I've kind of been able to like create my schedule more. Mm-hmm. Last year I was going to classes from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. just about every day. If not in classes, you have like an hour to 2 hours. I'm sitting there studying or doing homework or something. I would wake up and I'm a kid who likes 8 a.m.s. just because I feel like it gets my day started and I'm not sitting in my bed all day. So probably from like 8 to 10, I'm in one class. Get out. It was actually 8 to 10, I had one class. And then I'd get out, have about 15 minutes, make it to my other class. And then I'd be there for an hour. After that hour, I'd go again for another class for another 2 hours. Then maybe I'd have like an hour and a half to 2 hours. I'd either hang around here, grab some lunch, go up to my mom's office or hit a study room, something like that, and then come back for like another 2 hour class. And then also on top of this, I'm part of the Ex-Phys Club and I'm on their board. So I'm constantly like going to different meetings. I'm doing different service projects or I'm trying to think of like different service projects we can do. So I do those in the evening. I'm also part of Mountaineer-a-thon and we have 2 meetings a week. So I'm having to go downtown to those meetings. And I also have 2 jobs. So yeah, so in between the classes and everything, I'm also running over to the hospital and working. If I have a 4-hour break, I'll run over there and work for my 4. I also work at all the areas of an evening, so I'll run there and work. But I hate to say it that like it's a job going to school, but it really is. And if you don't put in the time, you're not going to see the results. Like a lot of kids have came up to me and been like, I'm getting really bad grades. I'm getting really bad test scores. And I would try to explain it to them as like, listen, when you get out of that class and you have that hour window or that 2 hour window, go back over that whole class that you just learned. Like you have to go back through and write your notes again. And they're like, but that's so much time. And I'm like, listen, if you want to be successful, you have to do it. And they're like, we always see you here. You're always running around doing something. And I'm like, I am, but like in the end, it's making me better as a student. So I feel like if you apply your time in your days, and also I do take a day off. Like I do take a day off everything. So I like always say like take your day off, but like use that 8 to 4, maybe not every day 8 to 4. Maybe do like one day, like just do 8 to 12 or like finish your class that day, review it, and then be done with it if that's all you have for the day. But my typical day is jam-packed if I want to be successful. My freshman and sophomore year, I feel like they weren't as jam-packed, and I feel like it was because I didn't put in the time to be as successful as I am or as I try to be now with the major and my grades and stuff.
Well, also there was COVID.
Oh, yeah, exactly. So you were also home and you were able to like do other things. I also find that is a big, if I'm not at home, I get so much more done. If I'm at home, I find everything else in the world to do. So I try to like stay out of my house for a good amount of my day.
Yeah. It's hard to find, it's easier when you're out of the house to do things.
Exactly.
You're not distracted by everything else.
Exactly. And I live at home with my mom. So I have her that's like, she constantly wants to go do things. So if I'm home and she'll be like, oh, let's run to the store. Oh, like WVU women's basketball is playing. Let's go. And I'm like, hold on. So I find that like if I set my Monday this semester, I give myself Fridays. I try to give myself Fridays off, or like at least Friday mornings to like sleep in. But if I set the rest of my week like for an 8 to 4 those other days, I have everything done. And at 4 I can go home and like not have to worry about doing assignments or anything. Like everything's done, so I can just go home and enjoy my day.
Yeah. So kind of going into a little bit of a difficult question. Throughout your entire educational career, what has been your biggest failure or regret? And you can take some time to think.
Oh, what has been my biggest failure or regret? Goodness.
And I'm also going to ask the opposite of what's your biggest success, so you can do either one first.
My biggest failure would be so hard on I'm so hard on myself. I sign myself up for everything. I do everything. Like, I will not give myself the grace of, like, just take a moment and don't sign. Like, I kid you not, from sophomore year, because I joined X-Phys Club sophomore year, to now, I go to everything. Every community service event they put on, I try to attend. Everything that the major has to offer, I try to attend. Like, I try to go to everything or be involved in everything. And if I got to do it all again, I'd be like, it's okay to not do everything or to go to everything. Like, I always say to myself, I'm like, I work myself to death right now. And my mom is literally like, I don't see you half the time because you just go everywhere. Like, I'm doing something all the time. But that would be my biggest regret, is like maybe giving myself like take the weekend off or like go on the trip with your friends that they're all going on, because I won't do that. I'm 22, I'm a senior, and I've never been downtown to a bar, ever. Yes, I've never been downtown to a club or a bar. I'm always like, I don't have time. I have things to do. Or like if I have a night off, I have to go work. Like, I have to do something. And that's my biggest regret or my failure, is like, it's okay to like take a day off. And I think it would be great sometimes to just take a minute and be like, no, I want to go do that fun thing. But I usually don't.
Yeah.
It's not, I mean, that would be like my biggest regret. Although I feel like I've lived my college life. Like, I've been to the football games. Yeah. Like, I've given myself grace in some ways, but you're also going to see me everywhere. So like, I'm always doing something.
Yeah.
So that would be my biggest thing.
So what about your biggest success?
Okay, my downfall might be my biggest success. Is like, was I involved in everything? Yes. But for that reason, people will know my name. Like, going into med school, you're going to see I have 400 community service hours. That's a lot. Yeah, most people's requirement is 100. I've quadrupled that. And I only started my sophomore year. So, because freshman year, COVID, I feel like we got thrown in. We did not know anything. That would be my other worst thing about college, is we never got a proper like freshman year. Yeah. And it sucked, because I feel like you were almost, I hate to say this, the college did a great job at trying. Like, I think everybody did.
Everybody was
exactly. And you had no idea what was coming next. Like, we would start school and then we'd have to go off again. Yeah. But like, the tools we were given, I'm not sure if they were the best tools that we could have been given. Like, we were still set in our room doing these Zoom classes. I'm just going to be honest, that freshman year was like horrible. Like,
Yeah.
it was a lot for me because I moved here. Of course, it was like a 15-minute drive where I normally lived. My mom was with me, so I at least had somebody, but still, like, just getting in a whole new area and surrounding, and you're just like, okay, I just sit in a house all day, every day, because you still really didn't want to go anywhere. It sucked. That sucked. So I just, that was horrible. So freshman year, I literally did nothing. There was nothing really to be done. But sophomore, junior, and now my senior year, I have done absolutely everything I can to make a name for myself, hopefully a good one. But I've been involved in anything and everything that I could find that I could, like, be a part of. Like on the Discover Days or the tours when they bring the kids in here, like the upcoming class, I'm here. You will find me here at the Ex-Phys Club table. I'm always like, Dr. Sherlock, sign me up, because that's what I want to do. I'm part of Mountain Year-a-thon, so you'll find me sometimes in the layer, tabling, or you'll find me on Instagram putting stuff out every day for Mountain Year-a-thon. I try to really be involved to make a name for myself, because it's easy to get lost in college. And I really wanted to be, like, able to have a professor see me and be like, I know her. She was a good student. She was this, she was that. So, and I also, you have to ask for letter of recommendations for, like, basically everything now. Yeah. So I was like, I need to grow close with some faculty so I'm able to have somebody who's like, she's a good worker. Like, go for her. Yeah. So it's my biggest downfall, but my best attribute, I feel like.
And it's really hard to get easy. It's really easy to get lost in a big university.
And that's how I felt my freshman year was. Is like, my mom would be like, oh, like, you know, focus on your relationships. And I'm like, I couldn't even tell you half the names of my teachers freshman year because you never even saw them.
No.
And it was just like, I was just like, if this is how the rest of my college goes, like, I just felt like the tiniest person ever. Because it was just like, you knew nobody. You couldn't even, like, you would find friends through Snapchat from everybody putting their chats in. It's actually funny. That's how I met my boyfriend of 3 years now. We had the Ex-Phys, they had the orientation on a Zoom, and everybody put their Snapchats in. And we were trying to go through and add all these people because we were like, that's the only way we can make friends. Yeah. But, I mean, in the end, it's worked out. I've made more than enough friends in Ex-Phys. I have tons of people that will be in my wedding one day that, like, I absolutely love. But that was a big thing for me. Like, freshman year, I was like, darn it, we, like, lost that.
Yeah. But the college tried, and we all made out fine.
Exactly. I'm like, hey, I'm about to graduate. You're going to see me walk across that stage, and that's what matters. Yeah, so.
Exactly. So where do you see yourself in about 5 years?
In 5 years, I better be matching for residency in this hospital. Yeah. I'm taking a gap year between undergrad and med school. Hopefully, I get into med school next year. But hopefully I want to stay here. If I can stay here, I'd love to stay here. I love West Virginia, everything about it. I do not want to leave. I love this hospital. I love everything. Yeah. So I'm like, I'd love to go to med school here, match for residency here, and just stay here. I hope to be here. I hope to be on my way to being a doctor. If it's not in 5 years, I'll be extremely disappointed. If I'm not going MD, at that point I should be DO. So it's got to be one of the two. But that's where I see myself in 5 years. Hopefully getting ready to, like, get married, settle down, building a life for myself here.
Could you describe the difference between MD and DO?
Honestly, I have asked a lot of people. I've researched it. Truthfully, it's just from what I've heard, it's just the schooling and your title is different. The schooling, you kind of have similar schoolings and upbringing. It's something with the specialties are a little different. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, everybody who I've talked to, and I've chatted many doctors, they're like, listen, we don't differentiate them. So I don't, from them saying that, I don't see as big of a difference as it's all about exactly what you want to go into. And me personally, I have no idea. Like, I love everything to do with medicine, but everything that they take me into, I'm like, I love this. So I love everything. Exactly. The more that, it's crazy. My mom has been a cancer nurse for my whole entire life. She actually worked in the Betty Pushkar Breast Care Center since she was there 17 years before her new job, which is colon, liver, and pancreatic cancer, and she's been there just about 7. And when I started looking into things I liked, I was like, absolutely no cancer. Absolutely none. I want nothing to do with it. Like, that's my mom's thing. And then I shadowed a day in a breast cancer clinic. And it was the oddest, like, this is what I want to do in my life. I like to still keep my options open. I don't want to say that, like, that's exactly what I'm set on, because I don't know. I haven't seen everything. But sitting there, like, in the clinic and going through everything with them, as a woman myself, and, like, you know, I'm still young now, but, like, I could potentially go through it one day too.
Yeah.
Being with it, something about it was so comforting. It's like, they say, like, when you know, they say it with, like, a husband, like, you know.
Yeah.
And it was like almost sitting in there, I was like, wow, like, I could see myself doing this for the rest of my life. I loved everything about it. Everything, like, from, like, delivering the bad news to, like, looking at our options, everything about it was, like, one of my favorite things ever. Yeah. So I really liked that. I liked the plastic surgery side of it too. I feel like that's, like, a superpower in a way, like, being able to give somebody back what was taken from them. And, like, that was really empowering. I was able to shadow Dr. Woodbury. She's a plastic surgeon, and she really focuses on, like, the reconstruction, and being able to, like, go with her and see her work. It was amazing. I was like, this is the most empowering thing ever. Like, I walked out of there. It was an 8-hour OR day. I should have been absolutely, like, zonked. I was, like, on cloud 9. I was like, that was the most empowering day ever. So if I could do that one day and still feel that every single day and it not feel like a job, that's all I'm asking.
Yeah. So how about in 10 years, where do you see yourself?
Hopefully
kind of went into that.
Yeah, so hopefully signing on to be a doctor here. Yeah. If not here, hopefully somewhere close. Don't want to go far. But yeah, hopefully being a doctor, starting a family. I want tons of kids. I'm, like, such a kid person. I'm like, give them all to me. But yeah, hopefully still here. I want to stay here as long as I can.
Was there something that you wish you knew before you came to college?
Yes. This is my only thing that I do wish I knew before coming to college or before I picked this program. A lot of other programs, different colleges around the area, I know Marshall does something similar, in the Green, like, to get into the DO school at the Greenbrier, they also do something similar. Mm-hmm. You can apply for med school before you go to college. And it's kind of like an early acceptance program. Okay. When I looked into it in college, or in high school, there wasn't anything here at WVU that was specifically like that. And I knew I wanted to go to WVU, and I wanted to stay at WVU for everything. So I sold myself short and did not look anywhere else. That is my only thing that I wish I looked into. Not saying that I would have picked that over WVU, because I loved my time here, and I honestly, like, I think that, like, this was my path for a reason. But I do wish I would have looked more into, like, how to get an early acceptance before I ever started school anywhere. It doesn't matter if it was here or anywhere else. I just wish I would have looked, like, what did other med schools or DO schools want from me? Because then maybe I wouldn't be here taking a gap year. Although, I'm not complaining. Yeah. I'm excited for my gap year. I'm going to do some research work, so I'm excited.
That's very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of went into what you wish. Is there something else that you wish you knew before you went into this major?
Honestly, no. I think when I picked this major, WVU did a very good job of telling me where it would get me, but also didn't tell me so much that I would be scared. Because I think if I was told how rigorous the coursework was before, it would have really intimidated me. Yeah. And I try to keep it really open and broad with the new kids that I see coming in the new classes. There's tons of people to help you along the way. I'm not saying that at all, because I think this program, like, there's people that crumble in it, yes, but also the people that want to succeed will succeed. They will make it there, and this program does a great job of, like, if you need help, that professor is going to meet with you. If you need extra time on something, they're going to help you with that. They're not just going to be like, put that pencil down and get out. Like, they really take their time. But if you would have showed me a schedule of there were times I would have 3 exams on one day. It was horrible. I would have biology, OChem, and Ex-Phys, like kines. It would be something. And it was like, it was very overwhelming in the moment. But at the same time, like thinking about going into another like med school, or from instance, like my boyfriend's going optometry. We talk about it all the time. When we have 2 or 3 exams a week, that's easy peasy to us now. Like we're used to studying for that. Like that's normal. Where it's funny, this is actually hilarious because I told somebody I was doing this and they said, you have to say something about biology majors because for some reason they're like our rival or whatever. Oh. But one of the girls I talked to, she was a biology major and she was like, you had 3 exams on the same day? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, 2 exams in the same week scare me. And I'm like, that's easy. Like I've had up to 5 exams sometimes in 1 week. So like if I can handle that, I feel like I'm put on the right path for success. Where if I feel like if they would have told me that coming in freshman year, I would have been like, hold on, let me rethink this. Yeah. Where like now I'm like, no, set me up for something else. Like I'm fine. I'll figure it out. I'll make it work. And we always do. Like Ex-Phys students, most of the time, we make everything work.
Yeah. So what are some career options that you have besides med school after a degree in exercise physiology?
So one I didn't know was I'm going to be kind of like a research liaison for my gap year. And you can go really far with that. I just want to use it for my gap year to gain some experience. But there are people that like now specifically work in research labs, and that's like their favorite thing to do. You could also go on to nursing. They have an accelerated nursing program here, which using Ex-Phys for your 4-year degree and then going accelerated. I know a lot of nurses who do that now in the hospital and they really like it. They think that like it prepared them better for nursing school because it kind of gave them some time to grow up and mature, and then you hit hard when you go to nursing school. Yeah. Some other career paths, you can always go on to do dentistry, optometry. Like yes, like all of that stuff. I'm trying to think. Honestly, if I'm being honest, I picked this major because I said it will push me to go on. Because there's not much that you can just do with an exercise physiology degree. Yeah. Like, it's a degree, and a lot of jobs just require a degree, so it kind of depends on your career path that you wanted to go into originally. But I was like, this would be great because I can't get complacent in another job. Like, it would push me to go on. So that was my big thing is, like, I really wanted to go to med school, and I knew that, like, this degree would help me get there, but also I'm sure there's people who have made great careers out of just getting a degree in Ex-Phys. I'm not saying that at all. But I knew it would push me personally. Nothing that you could get a job with was something I wanted to do. So I was like, this would push me even more to go fulfill my dreams.
Okay. So this major gives you all the prerequisites and stuff?
It just really sets you up for like taking your MCAT.
Okay.
Really sets you up for that. Also, like I feel like me going in compared to a chemistry major, I know all kinds of functions of the body. The chemistry majors know all the chemistry, but I know the body. Yeah. So like that was my big thing is like this is covering chemistry, biology, like everything that I need to set me up to succeed, or more so give me an advantage, or I've heard it before. Like this could be more introductory than that type. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So we're kind of going to start wrapping this up just a little bit. So what is one question that you wish I'd ask you, and how would you answer?
The faculty. I wish you would have asked me how the faculty was.
Go into that a little bit.
Okay, I love the faculty. I absolutely love the exercise physiology professors. They are literally like a godsend. They take their time with you. They explain things. If you're not understanding something, then they know the rest of the class isn't, so they'll hit on it again. They want you to ask questions. They don't want you to just come sit there and just fill a seat. Like, they actually care about you. They want to know your names. They want to get you involved, and they want to see you succeed. Like, I had a professor last year who continues to be like, how are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your, like, what are you doing after college? Like, this and that. And they give me their phone numbers. They're like, hey, if you need extra help, text me. Or if you need anything, let me know. They really there's one in particular, Dr. Sherlock. She's head of the aquatic therapy emphasis for exercise physiology. She takes her time, like, to actually make sure that kids are getting it. She takes her time to make sure that X-Phys Club is a success. She takes her time in picking out students to be on the like board to help make X-Phys Club a success. She, truthfully, like, when I tell people about X-Phys Club, I can't help but not tell her, because I'm like, she is the reason that I think 3/4 of X-Phys kids succeed. Because if it wasn't for X-Phys Club, half of us wouldn't get our community service hours. But like, she makes me want to be a better person. Yeah. I mean, honestly, all of them do. There's a Mr. and Mrs. Dr. Leary. They're amazing too. Like, they make me, especially Mrs. Dr. Leary, because I really worked with her like one-on-one. Talking to her like makes me want to be successful. Every single one of them, they hold themselves to a higher standard. They hold us to a higher standard. So it just like, it empowers you. You just feel like, okay, they're in my court too. Like, they want to see me succeed, so now I have to succeed for them. Like, I have so many people depending on me. So I really like faculty.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is a topic that you wish we would have covered? I haven't.
The mental health aspect of college. Yeah. Actually, X-Phys, they do a great job. We have a huge, it's literally called X-Phys 386. And it's the nitty gritty. A lot of kids don't pass it, and it's a hard class, and it's designed to be a really hard class. But they take their time. They give up, at least when I was in that class, they gave up like a whole 30 minutes of every class after an exam for Be Well to come in there and give us tips and tricks, or take us through an exercise or something to like help us mentally. I feel like it's a big thing, especially with kids. Mm-hmm. If you have a type A personality, you want to be absolutely perfect. College doesn't really allow you to be absolutely perfect. Yeah. So like for me, that sophomore year, it was debilitating, because like, you couldn't get 100 on every exam. You couldn't get straight A's. You were trying so hard, and even your best wasn't good enough. Yeah. But like, they, especially in this major, and I think the college overall, I think they've really turned a corner with the mental health thing. They give you tools to help you. And if you need a mental health day, they're going to be like, listen, just come talk to me. Like, if you miss something, it's not the end all be all. If you get a B or a C, it's not like, your life is not over. Yeah. And they really stress that to you, is like, it's okay to not be perfect in this major. And I think exercise physiology, every professor I've had has preached it. Like, it is okay. This is not your end all be all. If you have to switch majors, no big deal. Like, if you get a B, it's okay. Like, they really stress on that. And I think the college overall has done a really good job, but I know them bringing in Be Well to us kids going through such a hard class, it really makes you like understand, like, they do want the best for us. They might give us a really hard test, and you might want to cry while you're in there taking it, but they don't do it to target your mental health. They aren't trying to see you fail. They want the best for you.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I haven't had somebody talk about that perspective yet.
Yeah.
So it's really important. One topic that I wish we would have covered, and I kind of want to ask you about this. Can you talk about the facilities here a little bit? Like, I heard you mention aquatic therapy. Mm-hmm. And I interviewed Dr. Brett Rice. Mm-hmm. I interviewed him, mm-hmm. and I was in like the gym area and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. If you want to talk a little bit more about the facilities here.
I think we have decent facilities. I'm not saying they're anything exceptional. The classrooms and everything, they're good for what we use them for.
Yeah.
But in terms of like, I had a weightlifting class, like we're shoved in like a tiny little room in the basement, mm-hmm. and they need more funding for that type of stuff. Yeah. I mean, this major, it's a great major, but it's very exploratory. Like, they want us to be hands-on in seeing, like, okay, we're talking about this, but like, let's actually apply it and see what happens. And I just feel like we're given a great amount, but we're just not given enough sometimes. Yeah. Like, it would be awesome if we were able to like actually have a weightlifting room, and like those teachers were actually able to get in there and really like do more than one class at a time. I mean, there's no windows down. Like, being down there, I always called it like the dungeon. There's no windows. It always has that stench, and it's just in a little hallway. There's like not very much room for us to stand there and wait. So I feel like in a way that's lacking. And we share classrooms with a lot of other majors too, which sucks. Like nursing, dentistry, like we're all kind of right here, and we're battling out there for parking with every hospital worker here too, which sucks. And like, I think we need something bigger and better. We're outgrowing this facility. There's so many kids coming here. There's so many hospital workers here. The hospital keeps growing. We just need something bigger and better.
Yeah. What are some of the different types of facilities here?
So of course you have like the Health Science Center. You have the rec, and you have downtown and everything. But here, I mean like this campus specifically, like for instance, like we don't have a pool up here. So we could never bring like people up here for like aquatic like therapy things. Because we couldn't like study them up here. Where like the rec, there's a pool. Milan Park Aquatic, there's a pool. There's just not like, there's nothing up here that like they can make it primarily just an aquatic therapy center for those students. We have labs here. We have all of that. It's just that it might not be the best location or the newest. Like, I have to go over to the other health science center to get up to my lab. Like, it's not in this building, which is fine. But then, like, I'm battling all those hospital people to get up the elevators. Like, we have, and that's not, elevators, they're horrible here. Just in the health science center, they're so bad. But, like, we're constantly having to battle with other things. We have amazing things here. Like, the weightlifting program, we have all of that. Like I said, the labs, we have classrooms, we have huge auditoriums. But we just, for the capacity they're bringing in, we don't have enough. And especially the parking, we don't have that. Another thing is, like, we have some outdoor area, but we don't have a lot. Really, food-wise, us kids can't get into the cafeteria at the hospital. So we have Chick-fil-A or which kind of adds up after a while. So there's not much food right here that we can get without leaving campus. Like I said, like outdoors, we have a couple picnic tables out there, but like the mountain layer has that whole mountain layer green. Like they have tons of things. So sometimes I feel like we lack in more of the social aspect. Like we don't have we don't have tons of places to like be social. The pylons, you have that, but like that's usually more of a quiet area. And I don't feel like we have, like the mountain layer, everybody sits in there and talks every day, all day. Like it's what you're there for. And we don't have that here.
Yeah. That kind of goes back to the mental health that you were talking about. That if we're lacking on social here, what else are we lacking?
Exactly. And that's like, that was my biggest thing too, is like when you did come here, you were so intimidated because there was nowhere to really stand and like talk to your friends. Like even after class, like we all will like congregate outside. It doesn't, like this semester, I've spent many times out there when it's like pouring the rain or freezing because it's super quiet in the pylon. So you try to like move your socialization somewhere else because you know kids are in there studying because we don't have a huge library here. Like this library is not very big. And there's only so many study rooms, and you're also sharing those with med school students. So like there's not many places you can go to find peace and quiet other than if you go downtown, which that's a whole battle in itself. So I feel like here it's really hard because you want to be social and you want to talk to kids from your major and like get together, but it's kind of hard when you're in this setting, if that makes sense. Yeah,
definitely. So one of the last questions I have for you is what's one tip that you have for the listeners? So high school students, freshmen, sophomore, undergraduates.
My tip would be, goodness, I don't know.
You can give more than one.
Okay, my first tip would be to distinguish yourself.
Okay.
If you're that type of person and you want to distinguish yourself. Like you can do it. It's if you really want to be successful and you really want to be like, hey, I want these people to remember me, you can do it here. It's everybody's like, you're a small fish in a big pond. And you are. At first, you are. Yeah. You definitely are. But there is like ways that you can make yourself known and that you can succeed. Yeah. If you put your mind to it, you can do it. My other thing would be that it's stressful at first. That first year is a lot, because I know my freshman year, I was like, if this is all there is to college, this isn't that bad, because like I said, I stayed home. We all stayed home. Yeah. My sophomore year, I was like, holy smokes, like planner, like you have to leave your house at least 30 minutes before. You have to fight for your parking spot. If you're not there, you're 30 minutes before. You like, sophomore year was a lot for me. It really overwhelmed me. And like sitting there looking and being like, I have this many exams on this day, this, like, get yourself very organized. Yeah. And then also say to yourself, when you're in the midst of like freaking out, there is a tomorrow. Yeah. There is a tomorrow. Tomorrow, it might be as bad as today, but there's a tomorrow. There's always a tomorrow. Like, it's not a big deal. Yeah. If I would always get scared before exams and be like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to survive. You're going to survive. Yeah. Either way, you're going to make it. You're going to be fine. And don't get down on yourself if one thing goes wrong. Like, there is far worse that could be happening. Yeah. So if you were able to make it today and all you can do is show up, good job. Like, that's all that you need. If that's all you can do today is like wake up, get out of bed and do an assignment, that's all that was needed. Like, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to like feel overwhelmed. But if you at least try to give yourself the tools, I feel like you have a better opportunity. So like, try to get somewhat organized. Try to find a good study group. That's kind of my thing, is like, find your little niche and find what works for you. What works for me and what works for you are probably two completely different things, and that's okay. So if your best friend's saying you need to do this, this, and this, and you're like, this doesn't work, I'm done, I need to drop out. No, you don't. You just haven't found what works for you. And if you find something that works for you and it doesn't work for you next year, that's okay too. Like, every semester is different, and what works for you today might not work tomorrow. So just do what your body's telling you to do what your mind's telling you to do. That would be my biggest tip, is like, find your thing, get what you find works best. You don't have to stick to it. It will change with you. But like, college is not linear. It's different for everybody. And some professors will be like, you need to devote this much, this much, this much. If you find that you have to do a little more, so be it. Or if you find that like their teaching way isn't best and you have to reteach yourself, then do it. Like, it's okay if not everything is perfect or the same. Yeah,
that was really good advice. So my last question for you is it might seem kind of silly, but the name of my podcast is called Samples of Science Cuisine. So what is your favorite type of cuisine, or your favorite type of food?
Oh, I'm Italian through and through. You can tell. My favorite food, and I work at Olive Areas, which is the worst thing ever. Pasta. Any type of pasta. You give me pasta, I could eat it for the rest of my life. I love pasta. Does it? Like, no certain type. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's meat sauce, marinara. It doesn't matter. Alfredo, I don't care. If it's just buttered noodles, I'm happy. Just give me some pasta and a salad. I like a good salad to go with it. Yeah. So.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me today. This was very insightful.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And that's all I got.